that again, this is the associations. Oh, we got cut off. We're still going.
No.
The associations and the implications in play. They're going to tell you the story.
Yeah, they spread out widely through a lot of different aspects.
Right, and they're going to show you why this is playing the way it is, because it's a trap, and
yeah,
I mean
it's a definite chasing your tail kind of situation, generation after generation.
Meanwhile, anybody can tell you, anybody, most specifically in the metaphysical community, can tell you, we have an abundance. We do not need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Somebody figured it would be a good idea, I guess, maybe to keep us productive or to keep us busy.
Right.
But it's not just that, because if not, even if it was not the intention initially, it's come to a point where it is just a trap. It's just enslaving us, and it's
kind of like
it's deafening us.
My ISP, my internet service provider, I will tell you right now. So there are people with their freaking hands on if you could imagine like an IV, and you grab the tube and stop the flow, you know what I'm saying? So there's people with their hands on the flow of different, of all kinds of different things, different services and goods and whatever the fuck, anything you can think of. And if they figured out a long, long time ago that if you just stop that flow, then the people on the other end are going to be like, what the hell happened? And all they have to do is like troll on the bridge, charge you some more. Like, I pay so much for having like internet or whatever, and now they have this new thing where they started doing a few years ago where it's not just like, oh, you're paying for your internet like it's a utility. It's now like a cell phone where there's like a certain amount of data allowed. Mm-hmm. And so you pay for the service and then you pay to use it. Yeah. So it's just a little trick that somebody figured out. They clamped on the flow, they stopped the flow, and they do that on purpose too. If you do the speed checks, my husband does these speed check things where I think it's just called speedcheck.com. You can go wherever you are, whatever device, you can go and test the real, actual speed, because it's not what they advertise, obviously, right? These cable companies with their little pamphlets come in the mail, and you can get blah, 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 fucking MBS, I don't know, whatever the technical term. And yeah, there you go. And it's never that high. It's never as much as they actually advertise, and you can check it and see what your upload speed is and your download speed. And they clamp the flow of that even when it was first invented, because they decided, well, if we slow it down, then we can charge people less for the slow one, and then more for the medium one, and then even more for the high one. But you don't have to do that. Like, it's all one speed. They're slowing it down on purpose to create the tiers. Mm-hmm. And that was in the very beginnings of the days of the internet, So it's been going on since time immemorial, where they're whoever they are. I hate saying that so many times. I know. It feels so conspiratorial, but
it's not a they. It's the programming itself.
Right. It's set up that way, and
the people who are using this trick are being tricked into using the trick by the trick.
Yeah, I mean, if you worked at some kind of company that was operating this way, it's not like some dude answering the phone at whatever, Spectrum, like, knows what they're taking. It's a weird thing that you can't just place blame.
Because, I mean, the people who are making use of this trick, they're doing it to earn their security by making profits for whatever company. Meanwhile, they don't need those profits. These things are free. The internet, it's running. It's its own animal.
Right.
It's free. It doesn't charge you anything to operate. Electricity does not charge you anything to operate.
No, it was Nikola Tesla figured out that the ionosphere is just, there's just electricity fucking bouncing around, right? And he was like, oh, if we build these tower things with the coil on top or whatever, everyone can just have wireless electricity wherever they are at any time, at any moment, for any reason. Just go for it. All you need is the equipment, the equipmunk. And boom, all of a sudden he dies.
Right.
And this disappears. His whole idea, his whole invention. They even tried to build one, I think, in like Colorado.
I've seen them build one, actually.
Yeah, people can build them. I mean, I've seen videos of like illicit
I've seen them build
Tesla
that
coils.
death ray where they built the it's essentially it's just a giant bug zapper.
Laser?
It's not a laser. It fires a directed basically a lightning strike.
Whoa. All right. Well, I don't know about that, but
It's
again,
cool.
the
It was
electricity
kinda scary,
is
actually.
just there. Like there is no special thing that flips on and off the electricity. They put that clamp on the flow when it was first built so that they could slow it down and turn it off.
Which, I mean, mind you, you might want to bear in mind that you're already paying the taxes that fund the projects that produce these things.
Totally.
Like, you've already paid for it. In fact, you've already paid for it many times over.
Well, oh god, just in the case of what did the NFL thing that I brought up earlier, and I don't know if that's true. I could be totally wrong about the whole nonprofit thing and them paying taxes. That's just what I heard. I don't know. But I know locally where we are, they use taxpayer money to buy and build these huge stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anybody else, but I have no desire to go to a dumbass football game ever in my life, and yet somehow I pay for it.
Baseball is
when
the worst.
the owners of the teams and the owners of the stadiums themselves and the players, there's just hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars floating around all these people, and I'm
shit out of luck.
paying for the stadium. Like, it's super
I'm shit out of luck
weird.
because I had to pay for their salary.
It's super weird.
While they
not the
they
salary.
play a game. Yeah, you're paying for their salary. They
No, it's
play
not
a
taxpayer
game.
money. I'm talking about taxes.
Taxpayer money goes into that. Where do you think all this money comes from? These fucking players are getting paid like millions of dollars.
Like, for people paying for tickets and merch and that kind of shit.
Right.
And deals.
But I mean,
from,
that
like,
shit comes from you having.
You know,
built the
Nike
stadium.
hires them to be in their commercials. It's a lot of it's just money. I don't care about that. I care about why the hell am I paying for a stupid stadium that pisses me off.
I mean, that's a community imperative. Like, I mean, if the majority of people want a stadium built, fine, it's understandable.
Boo.
It's boring. It's fucking. It's wasting a lot of our time. Obviously that's what it's designed to do.
Well, it's a form of entertainment.
It's
and
a form of entertainment.
That is absolutely
but,
necessary.
I mean,
I get that, but
it doesn't go anywhere. Like, there is no objective with this. It's just repeat, and ultimately it's wasting your time.
No, I
if
like
you're
going to concerts. What's the difference between that? I like going to see shows.
I mean, you could say the same thing about sports, but I mean, in the case of concerts, you get inspired. You build connections with people. You do things with people, and I mean, that might not even be so much at sports events. You don't really even have the opportunity to do that. Really, you
I'm
sit
sure
there and
people,
watch.
No, I think
I mean, it
you're
happens.
totally wrong about that. I
Sure.
think people connect over sports shit.
Yeah,
all
they
the
do.
time.
Well, especially if they're at home, watching it with party and stuff. But whatever the case, it's still.
Much, I guess,
and
the same
honestly,
thing.
I'll go ahead then and I'll say that the same thing with concerts as is with sports. Regardless, you're sinking time into this. And, I mean, again, if you look at the values in play, you're going to see the whys of it. Why are we so heavily motivated to waste time? So heavily motivated to enslave ourselves?
Why is it a waste of time to go see a kick-ass concert?
Well, I mean, it's not, technically. I can't
you
say...
You have to concede that.
I'm not going to say one way or the other,
I
but
will concede my sports thing. I can see how it could be a form of entertainment.
It may be a poor example, but it's an example. I mean, look around at what we're making use of with the internet, most especially with the telephones.
Yeah,
Which, by the way,
that ended up the way that the inventors of the internet thought that it would.
Anybody that's having any kind of issues with that, like Sweetie Cheek said with the internet, Sprint Mobile, PCS, I pay $80 with this phone and the one I got from my mom. I pay $80 altogether a month, and I have never run into a problem with data usage or anything of that nature. It's just Liara goes forever.
Did you just plug?
Yeah.
A phone company.
Well, that and
free?
I'm trying to help them out. If you want a good deal, that's where you're gonna go. That's where I went. It'll work out for you.
Now do the finger guns. Yeah.
But it's just our entire society is based on this. I mean, if you're using the telephone, you get apps. You get apps like what? Like Candy Crush. You get apps like these microtransaction games. We are being bombarded with measures by which to waste our time and to distract ourselves. Entertainment is entertainment. It's awesome. Amuse yourself. Have fun. That's actually the message that we see in a video that we might look into here, but we're definitely going to post a link to this video because it provided us some seriously awesome leads for this and inspiration. But I mean, I would say personally that if you are experiencing some kind of an adventure that leads into something that contains values, if you're learning from it, most especially if you're just flat out educating yourself, if you're learning something, if you're sharing, values that you want to share with people, being helpful, beneficial to people, that's where we want to be. That's what we want to do. But if you're locking yourself out, isolating yourself in any sense, and just blowing time into something, that's a trap.
That's a different scenario.
That's the reason why we call them a time sink.
What if synchronicity takes you to a football game?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where you meet your long-lost cousin or some shit.
Yeah,
you never know.
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's wrong. No.
At first I really was. I was really coming out the gates as opposed to fucking football, but I've talked myself through it, and I can see why people would appreciate it. I'm cool with that. Cool.
Personally, though, I'm anti-sports. I think that's a bad idea. It's just, and these players that are getting paid all this money, that they're in a seriously detrimental position.
It's a little weird. The inequality of it makes me suspicious out of the gate. But then there's a part of me that kind of wonders, if you had the means, if Nike came up to me and was like, I'll give you fucking 100,000 billion kajillion dollars every single year to, wear this hat when you go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And also say the word Nike 80 times a year or something like that. If somebody approached me I would be like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you have the means, then why not take advantage of that?
Right, and it's presenting opportunities.
It's ridiculous.
Opportunities are presented, challenges are presented. There's nothing innately wrong with any of this, and a lot of it can be considered good. I'm just, at this stage, where we're at, in our development as a species, we cannot afford to be so heavily dumping our time into things that are not productive and are not making the necessary changes, and most especially not only not making the necessary changes, but actually deliberately locking us into a state where we are making no changes, no development.
I think that happens a lot.
Why do you think it's happening so very much now? It's overflowing. It's just they're mass producing more and more.
Because the younger people coming out into the world have, for some reason, are lacking a certain ability to cope with stressors in the environment. I'm not sure why or where that comes from. I could take a few guesses, but I could be wrong. But what is that? I feel like maybe that's totally fucking wrong too. Maybe our parents and grandparents had the same amount of ability to cope with stress and anxiety as we do. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit, because that's always been my theory. Is it younger kids, they can't cope with shit.
Yeah.
They all are walking around I have anxiety and depression. Maybe it's across the board. I don't know.
They're playing in. It's all playing into each other. Again, it's all part of the same thing. And then the reason why this is happening, the reason why the kids are having the anxiety issues, and
I think it's crazy.
Claiming the anxiety issues, the reason why they're seeking such measures of escape, that it's because we are at that stage in our development where this system is going to be discarded. It's going to be altered to such an extent that we move on. We can't move on with this system in play. It is a trap. It's barring us, and it's fighting like hell to survive. And that's why we're seeing all these instances. It's like a virus in the system that's desperate and cornered and fighting with its last ounce of strength, giving it its all.
Which is like, it's a robot from the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Right, it is.
Begging to not be killed.
That's what it is.
Which is such a good scene. You guys should really watch that show.
Yeah, that show's awesome.
Summer Glau, and she's like, no, don't kill me. I love it. I love it. It made me cry. But she's a robot.
I love that.
Twist!
So, as I was saying initially, way back when, it's not a matter of where we place what we value, as in money or whatever else we're placing our value into. It is a matter of where we place our value. And we're not placing our value into beneficial items of inquiry.
Which I think is a weird thing, too, because I think most people are pretty well-intentioned. I think that, as a general rule, nobody's like... A majority of people aren't walking around like evil, like they want to fuck everything up.
Nobody is.
But
you and I might disagree on this, but no, nobody is walking around evil.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that it's a conscious thing where people are walking around. But yet, you get things happening like the science rejection in so many different aspects, the flat earthers and the environmental. You get people like Jeff Sessions.
It's the flat earthers.
No, but not even that. You get people like Jeff Sessions going on TV and saying that good people don't smoke marijuana. Like, I don't think that dude's evil, but he is so fucking misinformed that he's making dangerous claims that actually have a negative effect on the society as a whole for everybody. Mm-hmm. So by keeping certain systems in place, we're doing a lot of damage because they could be improved and improve the lives of everyone in this nation or world.
We are taking an enormous risk because we do not have the time remaining to be making these mistakes. And mind you, you got to factor in that misinformed or not, miseducated as most people are nowadays due to the public schooling system, with access to the internet at hand,
there really is no excuse.
You are not misinformed, you are ignorant.
I feel like that plays a big part. Like when you're first learning to drive, when you're in high school, and you have to like talk about what kind of laws there are. Like one of the things that is brought up, at least it was when I was younger, is that what's the rule? Like ignorance of the law is no excuse. Like you can't just tell a cop like, well, what's that old Dave Chappelle bit? I didn't know I couldn't do that. Like,
yeah.
When he does the white guy voice, it's hilarious. I think that that's an actual, like, I don't think that counts. Like you can't just say like, oh, well, I didn't know, because that's not our problem. Like, you can't just say, oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to drive drunk, but then you kill somebody.
Yeah, you have you have this information available.
You have the means to figure it out, and so it's kind of on you.
Yeah, and it's not just a matter of, like, having the wrong information or not having enough information and then being able to seek it on the internet, because if you want to find out the truth about something, you just do a little digging on the internet, you will find it. Now, where it comes to the point even further therein, where you're dealing with the actual values of a scenario, the reality of the situation, it's not hidden. It's the most blatant, most obvious thing there is. It's right in your face all the time if you just look at it.
Are you referring to like an Occam's razor kind of thing?
Not necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of things transpiring that are exceptionally intricate. But yeah, it did. I mean, you could say that in a manner of speaking. But I mean, this speaks to the issue I think that is most pressing in this matter, is that I don't know if it's like, it seems like it might actually be an innate thing in our system, in our being as human beings, our presence, like built into us. But it obviously it's been conditioned so much, so it could just be the conditioning. But I theorize that it might actually be a part of us in some way. But whatever the case, we go through a great deal of effort on a moment-to-moment basis to hide ourselves. It's like we've somehow gone so far as to convince ourselves that the objective here is to remain hidden, and we don't express how it is, and it is a defense mechanism. Now look at the values there.
It might not be a very effective
what are the implications in play wherein hiding yourself is the go-to defense mechanism, like flee, hide yourself, escape. That's what you do to protect yourself. And most people really don't feel innately that they, unless they've been damaged in some way and it's been conditioned into them, most people do not want to hurt other people, don't want to kill things. They don't feel like they want to damage things. They would rather flee. So the go-to mechanism of protecting yourself is to flee and hide.
Fight or flight.
Right. And most of us, for the most part, we're all going through life, especially the newer generations, are going through life feeling this precedent fear and this need to defend themselves, like as though they're being attacked, like they're taking offense to everything nowadays with regards to the language problem.
Yeah, like the language becomes on the same level as like a physical violent attack.
Right. They even go so far as to address it as that. So there are people on here on the YouTube saying that it's, misgendering someone is an act of violence, and I mean,
yeah, I would consult a dictionary about the meaning of the word
like
violence.
You should not be allowed to just take any word you want to and completely warp it to suit your standard.
But that's happening.
That is happening.
And who is to stop it? Because the whole point...
We are.
The whole point of the whole, like, free... Now we're talking about, like, a free speech argument, which gets into some pretty hairy shit. I realize that. I'm not trying to piss anybody off. But both sides, when you kind of pick a team or whatever in this argument, both of those sides have free speech. So it's weird when somebody is silencing you while saying that they're protecting their speech.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that happens a lot, where there's this disconnect where you're so worried about being silenced that you're actually silencing others without kind of realizing it.
Wherein the fact of the matter is that nobody's speech can silence your speech.
Exactly.
That's not a possibility.
Yeah, you can't be erased.
Why are
I like that. That's a funny
word. Why are we all so afraid? Why are we all hiding ourselves?
Maybe we're scared of being erased.
What does that imply? Now, I'm not going to go ahead and give the answer here because that's something I don't really want to have to touch on. But for anybody who wants to dig into the bottom of the mystery here, look at what that implies. Ask yourself why that's happening. It's built into us. If it's conditioned or not, it is in fact built into our being.
Like I said, it's the whole fight or flight thing, and our evolutionary instincts kick in, and we have that DNA floating around.
Mm-hmm.
That's like when you see a fucking cougar dip. You know what I mean? Like, that's still a part of us.
Mm-hmm.
That DNA is still there. That whole caveman fucking thing where it's a life or death situation, whether or not you kill an animal or find some berries. Like, I think that fucks with our heads a lot because we no longer.
That's where the concept of monsters comes from.
Yeah.
The monsters in the darkness, but therein lies another one. That's another value. And where I'm saying this, I'm speaking to the values in play and what they imply on a deeper, as existential level as regards the person that we all are. The one soul is feeling this way. The one soul has this value in play innately. The one soul has the concept of the monsters in the darkness. This is, as I said, I'm not going to go ahead with it, but this one is for anybody who really wants to get down to the actual battle at hand, and where we really strike to make a difference in the world. There is a monster that we're all battling, that we're going to have to face at some point, an ultimate challenge.
And it's that bullshit within ourselves, which I think it's a really hard thing to kind of flip that awareness around on yourself and really dig into shit that you do that you don't like. That's a fucking scary thing, to get to know yourself.
That's another thing that we were talking about earlier, was how it's scary to
Ass is asleep.
It becomes scary to explore yourself. I've had a lot of students who are flat out afraid to examine themselves. They refuse to do it.
Yeah.
And
I felt that way at one point in time, for sure. Totally. Yes, absolutely.
Also, something else.
Because it doesn't go on for a very long time. You feel the fear of knowing yourself temporarily. But then you learn and cope with it.
Right. So that's what you need to be doing.
It's not a prolonged thing. You're not afraid of knowing yourself for weeks and
that's
months
what the correct
at a time.
move is
it's
to
a day
actually,
or two,
actually delve into yourself, actually explore yourself, examine yourself, bring light to yourself, light up your pieces, light up yourself, and shine and share yourself, show your true self to the world. Be visible. Visibility is key to all of this. It's probably,
instead of hiding,
right,
and fleeing and running away.
And that the world, this is in regards to synchronicity, and how I've stated that, those working with us, if you follow protocol, the world will take care of you. However, where it regards synchronicity, the world, it may be a greater collective sort of thing, but it is another thing, same as you. It needs to be able to see who you are in order to affect the proper circumstances upon you.
Well, when you talk about it like that, it goes from like a self-helpy kind of subject to, turn your awareness onto your own behavior and your own traits and your own personality. When you talk about it as everybody as one and the earth itself, that kind of lends itself more to a singular consciousness kind of situation. And then you're talking about relativity. You're talking about reflecting in every person that you see and every interaction that you make as a reflection of yourself. And we rely on relativity. We rely on intention and relativity together make our entire reality. You can't know anything unless you know what it's not. And that goes the same for people and objects and anything under the fucking sun. So that's pretty cool. I like that. The whole relativity thing always intrigued me. I think it's a beautiful concept.
Right.
You have to know who you are.
See where I was going with that, with the other part where it's the value. No, I interrupted you. And I just where I was going with the deeper values is that at some point, you guys out there who are talking a big game about how we're all one, we're all part of this consciousness, you need to try and realize that, understand that, live that.
It's a hard concept to fathom.
At some point, you're gonna have to wake up as that one entity, and you're gonna have to face the real monsters in the closet, the real problems at hand.
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And it usually takes some kind of I don't want to use the word like trauma. I think that's a little bit too extreme.
And trauma
but
is, yeah.
Yeah, it takes some kind of incident or something where you're...
Well, trauma can be good or bad.
Where you're vulnerable.
Trauma is just an immediate and a sudden and unexpected change.
Yeah, no, like when I was telling you about giving birth, that whole thing. That's a trauma. That's a trauma on your body. It's a trauma to be born and to deliver. You know, like that's a whole nother fucking can of worms.
Another is not a word.
But you just lost me. You son of a bitch.
You know something I gotta say while you're lost? I don't know, it looks like your eye color is different now or something, but...
It's this stupid light bulb.
You, madam, are just outstandingly beautiful.
Look how great I look.
You're gorgeous. I love you.
Oh my god. I don't know if I told you today, but you look like shit.
Yeah, I do, man. I've been up for days. Okay, so what we want to do here, what we need to be doing here, is addressing, our value as as regards where we're placing our value. I mean, if suddenly or over a span of time, so many people, going towards a majority of people, decided collectively that we're not going to place our value in this object, this money, for example, or what have you, specifically money. Changes would have to be affected, and we're not going to achieve the alterations we want to or need to unless we step up collectively and decide to
and agree
right
with each other that,
and that's
aside from the little bullshit fights and disagreements, there's bigger matters at hand that we need to
right there.
bring
Why
together.
do you think we're being so heavily distracted? We're being so heavily divided. We're pushing for division. Like, look around.
Well,
the world,
again,
as we know it,
intentional.
promotes division, promotes conflict.
It's one of those clamp on the flow situations where it was built. The system itself was built that way, and I don't, again, just as I don't think people are walking around truly evil, intentionally wanting to harm other people, I don't think that anybody's walking around truly wanting to remain divided from their fellow human beings and to constantly, bicker and fight and disagree about things. I don't think it's like an intelligent active thing. It's more of a passive kind of behavior that's been conditioned.
That's just it right there. That's just one thing to speak to that where it comes to like the atheist, most specifically the kind of new age atheist, anti-theist movement. That's precisely what they do. They want to isolate themselves from anything that comes across as being spiritual or metaphysical.
It's a defense
separate
mechanism.
themselves from the remainder of the world, which is the remainder of the world. And most people believe in
even if they don't know. Agnostic, I think, it's a big thing.
agnostic is level. They're the ones that are kind of say, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
but
and I think
I'm not going to believe
people,
in one thing or another.
Most people would fall into that category if you straight up and down told any random person what agnostic really means. I think most people, majority of people, would kind of fall into that category.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we want to be. Like, we don't know.
We want to find out.
We want to find out,
Yeah.
and in order to find out, we have to step up, be visible, present our true reality, and go ahead and agree openly.
Well, not even agree, just to relate.
Relate openly,
Just to relate.
come to an open, honest arrangement wherein we go ahead and admit we do not know. There's not really any way we can see that we could possibly know some of the things that we lay claim to, especially with religion or even in spiritualities, but we do have methods by which to investigate, to find out. We can do that, and
flatliners.
Yeah, that's actually one of them. But in order to
clear,
in order to investigate investigate, we have to admit that we don't have the answers, that we're seeking.
Right, which is so hard for people.
Right.
For some
most
people.
especially here where we get with the New Age atheist, anti-theist movement, wherein their objective consideration, insofar as they're concerned, is to remove themselves from any presence in society that is that has any of these regards, and then go about arguing with them, denying them, rejecting them, starting fights with them,
I think I can
dividing.
understand where they're coming from, even though I wasn't brought up in such a strict manner. I think they went a lot of the anti-theist people have been like traumatized by the pushing of this nonsensical religious bullshit onto themselves, and when they're kids, when they're children, that's when you're supposed to be learning things and looking to other people to set an example, and all they're doing is feeding you this bullshit, and you know it, you just don't really know that you know it.
Especially if you don't know it, eventually you realize you've been in a cult this whole time,
and you feel betrayed, and you feel abused, and you feel,
they lose their family,
sucks.
they lose their friends who are attached to these religions. I mean, they go through hell and back with that shit. It's a bad experience. It's traumatizing. It's shitty.
Yeah, but stop pushing religion on your kids.
The thing of it is, I mean, if you honestly take a look at religion, I mean, you guys, especially the atheists here, the New Age atheists, they can go about, ridiculing religion and how absurd and just not even considerable it comes across. It's the stupidest fucking thing that we've ever come up with. Do you think that the people who designed that expected you to believe it?
Because it's so ridiculous.
At some point, you're going to become aware that it's bullshit, and you're going to be
rebellious.
You're going to be traumatized by it, and you are going to be ejected from. I mean,
well, not just ejected. You're going to be pushed so far in the other direction that you're completely on the other side of the spectrum, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You're saying that that was an intended consequences.
I mean, look at it. It's a trap. We know that. It is obviously designed to be a trap. There's no denying that. Now, the trap goes one of two ways. A, you buy the religion, and you are effectively removed from God. You cannot speak to God. You are to be fearful of God. You are separate from God, and God is judging you and watching you, but you have nothing to do with it. You cannot embrace it. You cannot reconcile it.
Any kind of change in that.
And you are
observer.
Right, and you're enslaved to this ideology.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, option B here, you realize it's bullshit, realize it's a cult, you go through all these traumatizing experiences in order to eject yourself from it, and you go just one small step further and entirely remove yourself from any concept of there being an existing God altogether, which again, the actual existing God concept as was designed by our elder traditions before religion hijacked it, and as is in play now, is the living world. It's your relationship to the living world. You are effectively cutting yourself off from reality altogether.
Too, like synchronicity and the way that energy moves and light and crazy shit like the pyramids and what I mean, all that. It all goes kind of in one little mystery basket.
And that's the thing. It's the mystery.
And when you dismiss yourself from that little basket of mysteries altogether, then you're kind of missing a big part of the story.
You're missing the entire story. And what are you doing?
But that's like an age-old thing, is that you like you said that the religions now have been hijacked. They've kind of hijacked the symbolism and the meaning of elder traditions and old mystery schools, ancient mystery schools, because every great convincing lie has a kernel of truth, right?
That's anchoring. It's built on, in order to make an effective system of this sort, you have to make use of the values that are already in play in the system. You tinker with them, you put a different term on them, or what have you.
Yeah.
You know, you alter them to in some way to suit whatever standard you're presenting.
You create the clamp for the flow.
That's what you put in there. And what the clamp in this case is that
like,
God figure. It's that idea of the dictatorial evil.
And the word in itself, is such a triggering thing. When you use the word God, immediately people are like, "What?" and they have some kind of reaction. It's either like there's a number of different reactions, but they're all very very extreme. Like, oh my God, the word, you said the word.
And think of that, if we are to go ahead and consider a real living God to be this loving entity that is, you know, our point of origin and our friend, and, you know, just this loving, embracing force and play presence.
Force, I think, is a good word.
And we're triggered by the very word,
utterance of that word.
We're so afraid of it. Like, that's how deeply religion has affected everything. It's infected the entire world with these concepts. But that's actually religion's another area of interest we kind of delved into here. We shouldn't have done that, but
well, it goes without saying. I mean, it's a thing that's a part of our currency. It's one of those things that's universally agreed upon, whether it's looked at in a negative light or a positive light. It's universally agreed upon to mean this one thing, the word itself. You know,
it's affecting everything, whether you know it or not. The values are in play. That system is in play. And anybody who's living on a continent that is in any way been touched by this religion, they are infected to some extent.
The idea of the currency of it, I think, is interesting. Especially, it just popped into my head that, what was that one insight from the Celestine Prophecy where it talks about how when people are communicating, it's the power struggle, right? And when there's some kind of conflict, there's always like the vampire person and the victim person, and it can switch back and forth, but basically it's a vital energy. It's an exchange of vital energy. And most people have cut themselves off from their source of vital energy, which is just the universe or whatever, their own fucking heads. And so you have a finite amount, right? And somebody that you're arguing with or you're talking to or you have a weird power struggle, without even realizing it, that's what they're doing. They're sucking all of your vital energy, and the auras, go up and down, and whoever wins the argument or loses, and it's a whole thing. But that's like kind of a currency, the currency of vital energy,
well,
the currency of
is
attention. Yeah, it's attention and energy, attention, observation. It's like all these,
When we know from what studies in the quantum mechanics, with research, the headway we're making with quantum mechanics, which, again, that's something else that, one of the atheists responded to me saying that they think that my theory that we are essentially suspending physics via psyche, that we're deciding how physics operates collectively, said that they find that to be totally absurd, where in fact if they'd done the smallest amount of research into quantum mechanics, they'd find that's exactly what we are finding.
Because it sounds absolutely absurd, but does it sound any less absurd than saying that there's some kind of a bearded God figure watching over anybody, and if you kiss your boyfriend before marriage, then they're gonna strike you down with the fucking Nikola Tesla death ray for eternity or whatever. That seems
saying something
pretty ridiculous.
As ridiculous as everything that we're experiencing, this just outrageously meticulous system in play, is just a random happenstance that occurred from some shit smashing together by mistake.
Yeah, that's a little weird too. I can't. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know any answers.
And that's the
I wouldn't
thing.
certainly...
Where it comes to the atheist, as it stands...
But I don't believe in coincidence.
To note with this atheist that said my idea was absurd, my presentation, which is basics of quantum mechanics, really, they have gone ahead, and this is how you cut yourself off completely. Like the hatred, or not hatred, they say they don't hate, but I mean, I'm betting they do, but the disconnection or the discarding of the God concept, that's just a facet of it. The way that the manner in which, or the mechanism by which you actually do go ahead and completely cut yourself off from that vital currency is by making that decision that you know. You have the answers.
That's another thing.
No longer a mystery.
Like that video we watched the other night with the flat earthers and the scientists and they're debating or whatever. At first it seemed super like unfair, like it was totally imbalanced to just have like these random people and then like actual scientists that were specialized and educated, and they're just sitting there with Shelley and Dan or whatever.
Shelley and Dan.
And I was like, this is so unfair. Like, how could they do that? They're like, okay, you guys go ahead in this room and debate whether or not the Earth is flat.
I think it was Andrew.
Oh my god. And it was so funny. I immediately thought, I was like, wow, that's really unfair. They shouldn't do that. You should at least level that playing field a little bit. But it turned out that no matter how unlevel the playing field, no one concedes or learns, so it doesn't matter if the playing field is level or not. Because ultimately, no one is going to create that bridge where they agree on anything at all.
Right.
And so you can say all day long, well, I know what happens after you die, and all these other people are like, well, I know what happens after you die, and it's totally different than what you think. It seems utterly ridiculous, but if no one is willing to concede, then it just keeps going on forever and ever, no matter how unbalanced.
Here's the thing, the reason why that argument won't, come to a point of concession either way is because ultimately neither side does know. And they don't have any proof to that effect. Like, you can't... One of the... I got into a little commenter kind of debate recently where it was... There's this, like... this whole thing with this professor that's super racist, and he's talking about, tossing all the white people in outer space or something.
What?
But he says that... I think he said the Earth is
That's
flat,
an
too.
interesting
But,
Holocaust.
Yeah, but
into space.
Somebody actually asked one of the students, like, I think it was the first question asked to this in response to that, was, do you think it would be ethical for us to, what if the white people go out in outer space and they land on another planet with life?
And they create
do you
their
think
own
it's
situation?
It's ethical for us to subject the life on that planet to the colonization of the white people?
I've heard that argument brought
That
up
was
in
crazy.
different contexts when you're talking about like aliens and life forms on other planets. Not the racial aspect of it, but yeah, is it ethical for us to build some kind of a spaceship and take all of our equipment and build little places to live, the little Mars domes or whatever, and to take all that crap and a bunch of people and send them to a different planet and have them set up shop when we don't know what's already there. Even if it's not a sentient type of life, where it's maybe just plant life or something like that, we would still have an effect.
I think that would be, I think we could chalk that up to an event of synchronicity wherein whatever effect is taken. I mean,
there
that's
are people
destiny.
out
We're
there
making decisions.
Right. There are people out there that are, talking about this. They already have a list of people that have already signed up to be the first Mars people who 100% know that they're not coming home, and the list is full.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But here is the thing, like with the argument, neither side, the scientists And then this is what the professor had said. He doesn't think that, he knows that outer space doesn't exist. Outer space is not real. Somehow, in some way or another, outer space is not there. And I said, he's not wrong about that in a sense, because I cannot look at outer space. I've never seen it. I've never seen another planet like in such graphic as to ascertain it's happening. I can't go into outer space. I have no means by which to prove to myself that it's there, and thereby, in my experience, I don't know. I believe it's there, but I don't know. It's not necessarily real to me, and technically it is not real.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, scientific.
And there's no way that I can prove that you exist. There's no way I can prove that any of this is really happening. It's all happening in the brain.
All you're seeing, really, is photons bouncing off the surface of whatever the hell I am and reflecting to your eyeballs what this looks like, who then send that information to your brain and back again.
Yeah. And ultimately all it's doing is it is the very consciousness relating to the values in play. The gloriously beautiful values in play. Sweetie cheek. She's so beautiful. But, so, the outer space, the scientists, they can't prove to themselves, let alone to these flat earthers, that the earth is round. They can't provide any actual, even if they show pictures, it's like the pictures can be doctored.
Well, that's like when one of the flat earthers said that he's like, show me something, show me a thing that's evidence and I will believe you. And I had to pause it immediately right there, and I was like, that's not going to happen. Like, you could show this dude anything and he would still find some way to say, well, that's fake, that's not real, that's a trick, someone's tricking me. Unless you put that dude in a fucking spacesuit and send him out into outside of the atmosphere, he's not going to look at any kind of... So the fact that he's sitting there telling a scientist, like, oh, well, show me some evidence and I'll totally believe you, it's complete bullshit. There's no way that dude would concede. You show him any kind of evidence and he's going to say, well, that's fake, because you can't...
And that's just the thing. It could be.
But there are astronauts that have been up into the International Space Station. So we do have a small number of people that do have that beyond the shadow of a doubt proof, right?
That's what we believe, but we cannot prove it. And so, maybe they do, and in their experience, it's absolutely real. They know that. But I don't know that. And scientists, they cannot make the flat earthers know that.
No.
While the flat earthers absolutely cannot make anybody believe fucking earth is flat. So either way, they can't prove it. It's not real. And this is an instance of seeing things in reverse again, wherein we believe what other people tell us is true. We believe what feedback we get from other people about the world. In most cases, people who just don't even know what they're talking about. but we believe their word. We believe their testimony. We trust in it.
Sometimes.
But and sometimes we do.
But that's the purpose of science.
Exactly, yes, and that's why we believe in science. Science is a belief system. At least the atheists that we're talking about was somewhat intelligent enough to concede that yes, science is a belief system, that it can be wrong, it is something that you believe in.
But it's also, there are things that are repeatable, and so that's more than belief. That steps out of the realm of belief and becomes known
in the case
thing.
that you can run that experiment, yes.
Right.
But I'm not running that experiment. So I just believe in it.
In this day and age, you can watch videos of people running, smaller
could very
types
well
of
be
experiments
fake.
or whatever, but that brings into question, what is the ultimate purpose? If, in fact, you believe that everything is just trying to trick you, who's gaining from that, and what would be the purpose?
Exactly.
Of doing
That was the very first video I ever made. In any given instance, ask yourself who stands to profit.
And who stands to profit from convincing everyone that the Earth is flat or whatever. I can't think of a situation where somebody's gonna, like, get rich convincing everyone that the Earth is flat. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess you're right. Beyond the shadow of a doubt definitely means more than just belief.
Yeah, so, I mean, neither side can concede because neither side actually knows for certain. And the point of it all really is we need to concede that we do not know, that we're investigating, and we need to launch an investigation together in agreement that none of us do know for sure, and that we can't say the world is flat. We can say the world is round because that's the information that we're working with. That's what we believe in, but ultimately overall, because we all share that.
It's about trust, though, ultimately.
Right,
it's
and
about trust.
Trusting in each other, but
we have to get over that power struggle, that initial back and forth of whoever's winning and losing the argument, and decide to throw that away. Yeah. And when it comes to religion, when it comes to economical, financial institutions, when it comes to everyday life and necessities, needs, and wants, there's a power struggle within all of it, and it just kind of mucks everything up and makes it a little unfair.
An easy spot to solve that problem is to ask yourself, who stands to profit?
Yeah, whoever's holding that clamp on the flow.
In the case that you're arguing for, say, a flat Earth, you stand to profit.
Because then you get to walk around thinking I'm right.
You get to be right, and you get, again, that approval, which we haven't even gotten to that yet. And we're going to have to clip this in a minute because I've got to go. I got to work in the morning, and so do you, right?
Yep.
So, it's like 3 in the morning, guys. So we're going to have to cut this. We'll make another part.
The whole TED Talk thing. I want to.
Yeah, we've got a TED Talk. We've got Juanita's research. We've got all kinds of cool shit to get into, but we went way out here. But it was pretty awesome. I think we got a lot of good stuff across, and ultimately, I think I was trying to get at something specific with that, but
that's okay. It's with thoughts that are flowing, baby. It's good. It's good.
But so, as regards currency,
awesome.
Something that I'd like to put into play before we go that you guys can think about, in while you're waiting for the next video. I think, as it stands, it would seem that the most valued currency on the market right now, the highest profit,
the highest value,
the highest valued currency,
literal money value
being exchanged, of literal value, is this whole thing with the identity politics and the terminology. And again, we're ripping apart our language with this stuff. We're doing
but again,
immense irreparable damage.
There's a winner and a loser.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, in the public agreed upon information or whatever, there is a winner and a loser.
Yes, and that it's because there's a power struggle. Mm-hmm. It's because there's a battle. Like, it's not like there's a power struggle and so then there's a winner or a loser. There's a winner. There is a winner or a loser, or rather, there is the power struggle because there's a winner and a loser. Because somebody wants to be the winner, somebody wants somebody else to be the loser.
And it's different too. It switches depending on who you're with and what you're seeing and what you're hearing, who is the winner and who is the loser.
Yes,
which is a really weird power struggle.
Because
switching.
it's evidently subjective. It's imaginary.
Which makes the idea of the power struggle completely obsolete then, in that case.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, in one sense, serves to elucidate the factor that we can, in fact, empower whatever we wish with values. We can place values, meanings, reasons wherever we want to. We can, we can gamble our entire person in a term. I identify as...
Which you can do. It is up to you. I tell my niece this all the time. The only power that a word has over you is what you give it, which is the same if we're talking about currency and money. That what's the age-old sales adage or whatever, if you're like a salesperson or whatever, the only thing that something is worth is what somebody else is willing to pay for it. I could sell anything to anyone depending on who wants what and how much they'll pay for it. It doesn't have a set value. Nothing has a set value. The currency is fluctuating depending on who you're interacting with.
Therein, something that we learn, that I learned, Randy and I trained together in sales, something that you learn first thing is that you are not selling a product, you are essentially selling yourself.
Right.
You can, you by virtue of your person, can convince people of the value of a thing. And again, that plays into what's happening with the whole identity politics crisis. And this really, it touches at our very concept of authenticity. It touches at our, as the TED Talk gets into, our addiction to approval, which all of that falls in line together. And we actually have a pretty neat bow to wrap this all up in for you guys. The next video, we're going to get into the reason why we're addicted to approval, the reasons why these identity politics are of such enormous value at this point, are valued so highly as to forfeit our very self in lieu of them, or for the sake of them. And just we're gonna wrap all of this up. We do have the answers here. Don't worry. We just we
have all the answers. Everybody, don't worry.
We started asking too many questions, but
you can never ask too many questions.
Right.
Full stop.
But that is what we're going to be getting into in the next video, and neat little techniques and practices and such, and ideas, propositions, you could say, and challenges. In regards to, how we can go about managing this scenario, altering things in a practical way. And
we're going to solve all the problems.
We're going to solve all the problems.
Next time.
Next time. Later.
That's
a little
so
later.
funny.
We'll take care of all of it
We're
just later
busy
on.
right
Give me a
now.
little while.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But
no, we don't assume that we have all the answers to anything, or that we have any kind of solutions to any of the problems. We're just using our brains to come up with ideas. That's it. Everything is just ideas. And the marketplace of ideas is supposed to be a free thing.
Yes.
That is not infiltrated by value and currency.
Indebted,
it's supposed to be
enslaved.
It's supposed to be without currency, which makes it so valuable in and of itself. And that is something that's being threatened by many different groups and many different people with different opinions. But to threaten the marketplace of ideas is to threaten exactly what we're doing right now, which is just communicating openly with other people. And you have the choice to either turn it the fuck off or not. Yeah. That's the beauty of it. And to threaten that is so dangerous, I think.
I mean, ultimately, to cut into that, for the problems that we're dealing with and for the questions that we're raising, we do have answers, we do have solutions, but I mean, the extent to which they're going to be effective is based on the power and the value that you place into it. And then what's happening here with this crisis is that we are, in fact, kind of threatening the very concept of currency itself. We're threatening our ability to manipulate value in a manner of speaking, and we do have that ability. These values belong to you. The system is yours. You do. The one thing that we can be certain of is that human beings can make decisions. We have the power to decide And so everything belongs to us in that sense, that we have the power, the ability to decide what we're going to do with it.
It's super cliche, I know, which we were talking about earlier, actually.
Cliche.
But it's a true one. With great power comes great responsibility.
Which
it just goes...
is flipped.
They just go together.
Power comes with responsibility. Just, we need to be taking responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's a
Owning
really
it.
big issue, too, is fleeing from responsibility, not just fleeing from, monsters and scary things and defending yourself, but defending yourself against responsibility.
Well, ultimately, that responsibility is going to be the monster.
But that empowers individual to take upon that responsibility. Gives you more choices and more
which, of course,
freedom.
Comes to the ultimate conclusion that you are the monster.
Oh, no.
So, are we to fear the monster?
I
really?
mean, sometimes.
This is, yes, sometimes for sure. You can be quite monstrous, but that is the change. That is the ultimate. That's what we're moving into. That's the alteration phase. That's the ascension. Is we've been terrified of this monster for eons. But once we realize truly that monster is you, and that we have no need to be afraid of it if we just step up to the plate and own it, accept it, reconcile, then we move into a new world altogether.
Well, that's part of the game, man. And once you decide to do that, if in fact you do decide to do that, I can tell you from personal experience, it just keeps happening again over and over. It's part of human.
It gets cooler and cooler, it gets bigger and awesomer.
Uh-oh. I think we're going to get cut off. But anyways.
No, we just did get cut off. Yes, it gets cooler and cooler, it keeps going on and on and on. But, I mean, it's... honestly, I can say that from a personal, experiential perspective, I guess one of the biggest reasons, I mean, aside from, what's the word? I want to say kind of apprehension insofar as regards the very distinct potentiality that we could fail and be eliminated again, and at best have to start over from scratch if we can even do that, which is unlikely considering we've stripped the planet of its resources. And also for anticipation of being able to see this phase occur. But I mean, really on a personal level, we want you guys to know what that's like. We want you to feel that. We want you to experience that fucking adventure time, amusement park ride of a life that you're capable of living, and to experience and express how amazing you truly are, and what you can do with your life when you just realize that you own it.
And own it. That's our point for tonight. We need to wrap this up.
So we love you guys. Sorry for threatening you, but that's how we do.
I told him not to.
Alright, Kila Salai, Terbiuni Siari, Namaste. We shall see you in the next one in 1 week.